And he says, for last year's words belong to last year's language, and this year's words await another voice. It is very important that we are using different language as we move into, you know, almost the second quarter of 2021. Now, I've heard it said that this time in history will forever be known as what they call the Great Pause. And the Great Pause, basically what they say in essence to this is that if we come out the other side of all this mess, the same person as when we went in, we will have missed the sacred opportunity to reflect, to learn more about ourselves, to grow in ways that we never thought possible. So what is happening on the planet right now is inexplicably incredible. It's truly the greatest gift we've ever been given. And Mickey, let me just say, not the virus, but the Great Pause. So it's the greatest gift we ever unwrapped, really. And so when we start to think about it, it's really because we have been given the opportunity to see what would happen if our world simply stopped. If it just stopped, if it just went away. And so that's basically is what happened to us. We're at a really pivotal place now in the pandemic where people are so disparate as far as how they're choosing to operate in the world. We've got people everywhere on this continuum, from irreverently acting like nothing ever happened to total isolation and deeply rooted fear. So we have both of those things going on right now. And what's really important about that is that it puts us in a position where we have created other opportunities to find conflict with one another. So more than any other time in the announcement of the pandemic, we've got some very significant decisions to make about who we're going to be when all this is said and done. The virus has obviously wreaked devastating havoc on our physical bodies, but what we haven't really talked about is how minute that is in comparison to how it has impacted the emotional and cultural toll that it's taken on us. So like most of you, I have lost family and friends in this particular pandemic. I mean, I have. And that said, I want us to consider some of the lesser known or lesser advertised effects or realities of this outbreak, because these are not things that you're seeing on your news network. So I want you to think about what this trauma has shown us about how we've been operating prior to this, because these are things that can't be unseen, right? Carlos, Los Angeles has clear blue skies, as pollution there has really simply stopped in general. In New York City, you can hear birds chirp in the middle of Madison Avenue. Coyotes have been spotted on the Golden Gate Bridge. There's areas in the rivers of Venice that are completely clear, and there's actually new species of fish that are emerging from that. So when we start to look at some of the other things that are happening, you know, families are spending more time together. They're talking to each other. They're sitting down for meals. Children are active. And so we're talking about all the goodness, right, that has come out of this. Families coming together. Children are active and creative and engaged in kinesthetic learning rather than sitting for 8 hours at a time every day without moving and then being put on Ritalin because they're for ADHD because their bodies physically are not made to do that. So all of these things are like postcard images of what the world might look like if we find a way to have less deadly impact on our planet and certainly on each other. So what we know for sure now is that the cat is out of the bag. Now we are seeing things now. We as a nation have deeply disturbing problems. We globally have deeply disturbing problems. That's not news, by the way. We've known that for a really long time. But they're problems that we have been ignoring for a very long time. And not because we're terrible people, and not because we don't care about fixing these problems, but what we run into is that the message that we hear overall is that we just don't have time, right? Busy is the new black. Does anybody here feel like they need more stuff to do? Right? So busy is the new black. And so it doesn't even matter, right? The plain truth is that no matter our ethnicity, religion, gender, political party, socioeconomic background, whatever that looks like, the plain truth is that as Americans, we share this. We are busy. You know, we're out and about and we're hustling to make our lives work. And we've got things on our to-do list. We have goals to meet. We have meetings to attend. We've got mortgages to pay. And so all of this, while the phone is ringing and the laptop is pinging, and when we get home, we have Crate and Barrel and Amazon and Netflix and all of those things to make us feel good enough to get up the next day and do it all over again. So that has become our normal prior to this great pause, if you will. And it's very easy to close your eyes to situations that are happening in the world when you barely have enough energy to close them to sleep at night. So what I really want to talk about now is, because this is the thing I think that has created so much tension for us, you know, across the nation, certainly for sure right now. And anybody who hasn't noticed that hasn't been paying attention. So we all have noticed that, right? The greatest misconception, I think, among all of us, and what causes deep and painful societal and social tension among people, is the misconception that people just don't care. Like, that somehow we don't care about each other, that white people don't care about Black African or Black Americans, that men don't care about the needs of women. There's not any gender equality. Cops don't care about the communities they serve. Humans don't care about the environment. So that's the message that we get on the news and on social media and in conversations that we have with people. It's like, how come people don't care? And the reality is, and we all know this because we're all in that scenario, is that people really do care. We just don't have the time to do anything about it. Maybe that's just me, but maybe that's you too. And so what I want to talk about is this treadmill that we've been on for decades has just stopped, like bam, right? And when the treadmill stops, you know what happens, right? So you're going to go flying off. We're going to hit the ground so hard that we're wondering what just happened to us. So I think that's really where everybody is right now. It's like, what the heck just happened? Like, what? How, like, this is the strangest thing that's ever happened ever. And so it feels really weird. And so I think if we want to build a better world for our kids and for our planet, we have to pay attention to how we're feeling, like right now in this moment of great pause. Like, how are we feeling? And I can't speak for you, but, you know, I imagine you might feel a little bit like most of us do. You might feel devastated, maybe depressed, heartbroken, maybe even a little bit lost. Like, I don't even know what to do with myself. You know, our situations are so radically different. Our kids are not going to school. We're not going into the workplace anymore. Stores are not open. Restaurants are not allowing you to eat inside the restaurants. I mean, there's so many weird things that are happening that we just want normalcy, right? We all want it like that. We just want everything to go back to normal. And what we know for sure is that normal doesn't look like it used to look. Now, that doesn't mean we'll forever be wearing masks and not touching each other. That's not what I'm talking about. But the need for comfort is real. And I think as part of that, we're trying to shove everything underneath the rug and act like it's not happening so that we can feel our own level of comfort again. So the challenge with that is I would really beg of you to stop during this great pause, to take a breath, to reflect, and really consider that this is our chance to really define a new version of ourselves, you know, how we're operating in the world. It really is a sacred opportunity to just get rid of all the crap that doesn't serve us and only bring back the things that we want to bring back, the things that work for us, the things that make our lives richer, make our kids happier, you know, what makes us truly proud, and quite frankly, gives us a legit reason to wake up in the morning. And so let me bring this home for you just a little bit. So I'm not just suggesting that we all take a more active role in making the world a better place. I mean, I am suggesting that, but the best place to start, honestly, is right in your own home. So, and better yet, with your own habits, your own belief systems, your own boundaries, or lack thereof, boundaries. So, I mean, we have the opportunity here to just Marie Kondo the crap out of all of it, right? To really stop and look at everything and say, what brings us joy? Like we care, and I truly believe this, as goofy as it sounds. Number one, I believe that everyone believes that they want to believe that whatever it is they do in the world makes a difference to somebody somewhere. And I don't think that's not a global issue. I think it is. I also think that we care deeply about one another. And I think that's clear. Like you can see that in every like supportive Facebook post, and every meal that's dropped off for a neighbor. There's food pantries all over the place. Mickey and I were on a Zoom memorial call recently. That was really beautiful, and really supportive of that family. John and I have gone to like drive-by birthday parties. So when you see what's happening, so that people are doing everything they can to find creative ways to stay engaged, we are good people. And as good people, we want to define in our own terms what the world looks like that we want to live in. But it doesn't happen by accident. We have to look about what do we want it to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, for the legacy of our families. But the only way to do that is for us to figure out, okay, what needs to happen first? Like, what do I need to do today differently than I was doing before, right? That's the definition of insanity. We all know that, right? That you keep doing the same thing over and over again and you expect a different outcome. That's not going to happen. And thus the great pause. This is our chance to do that. And it's the biggest chance we've ever gotten, and it's probably the last one we're going to get. So, so what we can do, what can we do on a personal scale, like within our homes? First of all, it has to do with like how we spend our time with our loved ones and our friends. What does family time look like on nights and weekends? What do we watch? What do we listen to? What do we eat? What do we choose to spend our dollars on and where? As far as locally within our communities, it has to do with the organizations that we support. And I know part of the Center for Universal Oneness is about philanthropy. It's about giving back to those closest to you. So you're already doing this, I think, in quantum ways. But it has to do with what truths we tell and what activities we attend. So what we can do nationally has to do, and I'm going to share some examples with you on how we're going to do that on all three levels. But to do it nationally within our government and which leaders we vote in and whom we give power to as it relates to policies that impact everyone, that impact us every day. So there are ways that we can do that. If we want cleaner air, we can make that happen. If we want to protect our doctors and nurses and our friends and families from pandemics, we can make that happen. If we want our neighbors and friends to earn a dignified income, we can make that happen. If we want millions of kids to be able to eat if suddenly schools are not open anymore, we can make that happen. And yes, if we want a simpler life or just to feel safe within our own home, within our own environment, if we want to have less stress and connect to source more often, we can make that happen too. So I'm going to share my screen with you because I want to talk to you a little bit about, first of all, how we can make that happen on a global scale. So let me open it up real quick and share screen. Whoops, uno momento. It's happening all behind the scenes. Pay no attention to the woman behind the screen. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Fabulous, thank you. All right, so let's talk about this a little bit. I want to talk about this, first of all, on a global scale, because I was doing some research, and according to the United Nations, these are the 6 big ones. I think there are like 22 global issues that are part of the 2030 United Nations Elimination Campaign. But these are the top 6. These are the ones that, according to the statistics, have the largest impact on global threats to humanity in general. The first one is related to food security. And this is not a big surprise. What might be a surprise to you is the knowledge that we have and can easily produce enough food to feed everybody on the planet, but that's not the problem. Still, 1 in 9 people in the world goes hungry every single day and suffers from nutritional deficiencies. But it's not because we can't create food, it's because they don't have access to the food. So a lot of it just has to do with the infrastructures that we build to be able to support that. This is number 1. Food security, famine is the biggest threat to the overall health of the human population, more so than malaria, HIV, COVID, anything else. So we have to talk about access to food. Countries with the highest level of food securities also have the highest outward mitigation of refugees. So not surprising, right? So even though our overall hunger across the world has decreased a little bit over the past decade, there's been an increase in numbers of refugees, which typically suffer the most from food security. So, so that's something interesting. And it's not even just about not having enough food. It has to do with the quality of food. So even though like 11% of the world is considered to be undernourished, an equal problem is that 39% of the adult population are severely overweight, which means we used to call that overnutrition, but it's actually another kind of malnutrition because of what people consume in the way of packaged foods, things like that. And the problem is because nutritious foods are inherently more expensive, and some areas don't have access to be able to grow their own food. Lower income communities really don't have any choices as far as like how they're, what they're taking in, okay? The second one is around global health issues. So this is front of mind for us right now because everybody's talking about COVID, like it's the only thing there is to talk about. So the main topic of focus right now is just communicable diseases in general. And so not just COVID, like hepatitis, cholera, malaria, TB, HIV. So, you know, there's been some improvements in like access to cleaner water and things like that, but the lower income countries don't have they lack the emergency response mechanisms or the resources to be able to support themselves, like first aid skills. So it's interesting, like in first and second world countries, the conversations are more along the lines of non-communicable diseases. So we are focused on things like cancer, diabetes, respiratory, things like that. But these lower income settings, they're still responsible for 71% of the deaths of low income countries that are affected by this. The third one is somewhat related to health, but also just primary education, which impacts health. So let's talk about kids for a minute. Most children across the world don't have their basic needs covered. And we are getting higher and higher rates of under 5 child mortality, which is really terrifying. And the children's health and malnutrition very much go hand in hand because when they're malnourished, it impacts their ability to be able to learn, right? So there's a lot of stunting going on. It causes physiological damage. They can't concentrate in schools. The school programs are not designed to support in these lower income areas some of the issues that are associated with that. So even though some kids are attending school, the quality of school is so poor, their educational opportunities are really, really low. Number 4 of the big 6 is not surprising to us. That's gender equality. And I would tell you, and we all know this, right? There's a lot has been done, certainly in the United States, to alleviate this particular problem. But not in all areas. And so in most countries, women are honestly disempowered from a very young age, right? They're held back from attending school either for financial reasons or because they need to take care of the family and the home. And really just kind of trained in general that education for women just doesn't matter. Globally, women earn close to 1/3 to 1/2 less than men in most circumstances. And there's really far-reaching benefits. In fact, there's a study now being done by the UN that says that if it's been estimated that if women farmers were given the same resources as men, 150 million more people could be fed, which is an insane number. It could effectively get us to the point of zero hunger. So that's, you know, children of educated mothers are less likely to be malnourished and survive past the age of 5. So this is one that kind of surprised me, number 5 here, the empowerment work in Africa, because in my mind, it's like, how can you take a segment of the world and make that one of the top 6? But here's why, is that a number of world statistics highlight the need for additional support here for a lot of reasons, because this region, number 1, has the highest child mortality rate, persons living with HIV infection, children without parents, as well as extreme rates of child stunting. Highest number of road traffic fatalities, lowest numeracy and literacy rates. And here's the bigger issue. Its population is the fastest growing population in the world, which means more people are affected by these issues every single day. And then the last one does not surprise us at all, because we're talking about the environment, the environmental issues. And there's 3 key areas where the environmental issues come into play. The first one is habitat. Right? So biodiversity loss is what we're talking about. Forests really key to producing the air that we breathe, right? So they're responsible for like 50% of the oxygenation of the world. It's been depleted by 26 million hectares every year. Extinctions are happening in what scientists estimate to be about 1,000 times the normal rate. So, not only are we losing flora and fauna, we're damaging our ecosystems, we're throwing them out of balance in ways that are, if we don't get a handle on them in the next 6 years, realistically, it's going to be too late. And then number 2 is ocean conservation. 2/3 of our planet is water. We depend on it for everything, food, income. It also absorbs carbon dioxide so that we can breathe, which is kind of helpful on the planet. But despite this level of importance that's been identified over and over again, overfishing, unsustainable fishing practices are endangering the extinction of over 600 marine species a year we are losing. So global warming has caused coral bleaching, reefs are losing their nutrients, commercial fishing practices have dominated the market, so local fishermen are going out of business. The bigger issue, there's 2 other bigger issues. Modern day fishing techniques, they cause what we've learned to call bycatch. And bycatch means that like things like tortoises and dolphins and things that they're not trying to catch get caught up in these commercial netting systems. And when they pick all that up, what they do is they just like discard them. They're like, okay, well, we can't sell this. So they just throw them in the trash, basically. And then pollutants, of course, like boat fuel, pesticides, fertilizer, plastic has created these virtual dead zones where organisms just can't even live anymore. And then the final one is what we call water scarcity. And this is really, it's not a lack of water, it's a lack of fresh, clean water. And so this issue really is just poor infrastructure, right? It's displacement and conflict because people have unsafe drinking water. There's like 2 billion people in the world that have water sources that are contaminated with human waste and don't have adequate toilet facilities. And the reason I'm bringing these up is because the good news is during this great pause, we can produce enough food. We can provide adequate water. We just have to invest our energy and our time. I know you're super busy to investing in some of these things that are going to make a quantum difference for all of us in the long haul. The great pause is our opportunity to stop long enough to notice, first of all, to find the compassion and to shift our energies. So that's what we can do on a grand scale. So let's bring it a little closer to home, if we will. All right, let's talk about your circle of influence. And pardon me if I sound preachy, I don't mean to. I just want you to understand that when we talk about this great pause, this is the chance for us to stop and be able to say, are there things that I could be doing with my time to really start to assess how I am investing in the world and in myself? So in your circle of influence, one of the first things you can do, obviously, is to vote platform, not party, right? Almost all of these things that I just talked about as far as global issues, some of them can be done via grassroots operations, basically mean feet on the ground. You go there and you carry a box, you buy food and you take it to the food pantry. Those things can certainly happen. But a lot of the things that we need to correct during this great pause are tied to political policy or tied to policies in general, right? And so we have to make sure that we have an understanding. I can't tell you how many people I talk to when you talk to them about who they voted for. It's like they know who the head candidate is, but everybody else, their sheriffs, their judges, their local political committeemen, whatever, they don't even know who those people are. They just like, oh, I just voted for all the Democrats or I voted for all the Republicans, not having a clue what it is that they stand for and what they're going to vote for once they get into office. Educate yourself on what is happening and make sure you vote for people who are going to support what you want to have happen in your world. So take it back. Obviously, support community service projects in your area. It's tough to get out right now and be face-to-face with people, but there are people that are coming together to support what's going on around them. So there are food pantries, there are warming shelters, there are a number of different things that are happening that we can support right now. Use your social media outlets. This is a big one. One of the biggest areas of dissonance we have right now amongst us in the world, even amongst us with our friends, it has to do with how we're, what it is that's showing up on our social media platforms, right? And so make sure that you're using it for good not to complain or not to make other people look bad, or, you know, allow yourself opportunities to go out and find out what good is going on in the world, not just to blow smoke and rainbows at people, but to be able to say, here's something you can invest in. Find fundraisers that are important that you can share with people and start collecting money for causes. And then finally, check in on your neighbors. So that was one of the things that we were talking about recently, is like, we don't, especially now when no one wants to see each other or touch each other, you don't see each other. I moved into a neighborhood several years ago with my daughter, and we moved in next door to a girlfriend of mine, and she had lived in this cul-de-sac area for 12 years, right? So there's what, 6, 7 houses in a cul-de-sac. And so I asked her, I said, so tell me a little bit about the other people in the cul-de-sac. And she said to me, she said, I know their names. I don't really know too much about them. And I was like, how can you live 30 yards from someone and not know who they are? But that's the environment that we've created. We've taken front porches off of houses and we put decks on the back so nobody has to talk to each other. So this is an opportunity for us to figure out, like, how can we do that? We're starting to see in the construction industry too. One of the things, I read an article recently where they're actually starting to build more like tighter communities where houses are kind of like in pods. So you have a central community area, people can come together and talk, you have little picnics, you know, actually borrow a cup of sugar or whatever you need to do. So, you know, check in on your peeps. And here's the last one, which is to really take a look at what choices that you can make for yourself personally during this pause. Take a non-judgmental inventory of your life right now. And think about, you know, in the changes that have taken place that have forced us to be at home, what do you miss the most? Who do you miss the most? And more importantly, what do you not miss? Maybe you don't miss the commute. Maybe you don't miss the stress. Maybe you don't miss the pace at which you were living. Maybe you don't miss the travel if you were being forced to travel with your work. What is it that you don't miss? Because those are the things that are going to help you identify, here's what I want to have more of in my life. And when all is said and done, here are some things I'd like to do a little bit less than I was doing before. Maybe you're talking to your mom more. Maybe you're having dinners at home more. I mean, what are some of the things that you're doing that are providing you what you need? I want you to consider what new habits you might have developed. Maybe you're working out at home more. Maybe you're learning to cook healthier. Maybe you're setting aside time to do the things you need to do. One of the things that John and I have been working on is just clearing the clutter, you know, to go through and just say, I've got boxes of crap that I have hauled from a job that I had 20 years ago, but they're binders, right? And I put a lot of work into those. And those are like classes that I've created. Those are my babies. I will never do those again because they're completely outdated and no one cares about that information. So to be able to allow ourselves permission, to give ourselves permission to remove this stuff in our environments that don't serve us anymore as well. So what habits have you created? What boundaries have you set as a result of the pause that you want to maintain when all of this is over? Maybe people who have sucked the life out of you for a really long time have less access to you now. Maybe all the things that you had to say yes to, even from a philanthropic standpoint, the things that you said, yeah, I can help with that, when in reality, you didn't have time to help with that. You didn't have interest in that. And you really didn't have the emotional energy to be able to support that. So what were you giving away that you're not giving away anymore? Notice your physical environment in general, right? One of the things that I did, like, was in my office, I realized, number one, it's like, you know what? I have really lousy lighting in here. Like, I don't want that lighting anymore. I didn't like the backdrop. So when I'm on a Zoom call, it's like, there was like a half wall and it was really complicated. I went through and actually feng shuied my whole house because it was just it was fun, and it shifted the energy in my home. Look at your physical environment. Look at that mustard kitchen that you hate. That mustard kitchen. It's like, I need to paint that. I mean, I hate that kitchen. Look at the stair on the front porch that's broken, that somebody's going to break an ankle on if you don't fix it. You know, all of the things, and just asking yourself the question, is this even an environment that supports me energetically? So look at your physical environment. And then finally, ask yourself the question, where have I gotten too busy? Where have I gotten too busy? Too busy to commit to my spiritual practice? too busy to take care of my body. I'm talking to myself a little bit here too. To listen to the guidance of your non-physical support system, and to just really take inspired action. So those are the three things that I really wanted you to look at as far as how, how you really go about investing in those things and making them happen for yourself. Okay, so I'm gonna try to get rid of this slide here. Doesn't want to do it. There you go. There we good. And we've lost it. Hang there with me for just a second. So basically what I really want to share with you is that here's an opportunity for you to, for the sacred opportunity, because it's never probably likely going to happen in your lifetime again, for us to really stop and take a look at, honestly, the parts of our lives that aren't working for you anymore, and really invest in the things that are of utmost importance. Like, what is going to make the biggest difference for me? What's going to give me the biggest bang for my bliss buck, if you will? To really start to take a look at those things, to honestly, at the parts of your life that aren't working for you to be able to either repair them or to be able to walk away and never look back. Because as humans continue to prove through every major crisis since the beginning of time, is that the harder it gets, the more deeply we align. These are the opportunities for us to come together, to let this time of dissonance remind us that we are all one, and that we're here for each other, as we're focused on how everything impacts us, as we tend to get bogged down with the fear of the media and everything that is being put upon us, the reminder that we have a choice as to what we are going to focus our energy and our intention on. I want to close with it's actually a magazine article that I clipped out of a magazine years ago, and it is entitled Susie Orman's 5 Laws of Life. And I literally have it posted, I had it framed and put on the wall in my office. And here's how it goes. Susie Orman's 5 Laws of Life. Number 1, I'm going to read these to you so I don't forget them. Number 1, may every thought you think be etched in fire for the world to see, or in fact, it is. May every word that you say be said as if everyone in the world can hear it, or in fact, they can. May every deed that you do recoil on top of your head, or in fact, it will. May every wish that you wish another be a wish that you wish for yourself, because in fact, it is. And may everything you do be done as if God himself is doing it, or in fact, he is. Thank you for letting me come back and spend time with you. It's good to see you all again. Back to you, Jeffrey.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.